Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, our city's alt-weekly paper is now owned by the same company who publishes the Post-Gazette, where union members have been on strike since October protesting what they say are unfair labor conditions. Ryan Dito is the former managing editor at the alt-weekly Pittsburgh City Paper and currently reports for the Trib. He's here to help us make sense of it all and figure out what this means for Pittsburgh media. It's Monday, January 9th. I'm Morgan Moody, and this is CityCast Pittsburgh. Why do you think City Paper is so important to Pittsburgh? Why do we need an alt-weekly?
Alt-weeklies are about reporting about how cool and how fun city, urban life, even suburban areas can be, about our region and how to explore it and how to enjoy it. And so I think City Paper consistently will put out a print product that will do that. And that is something that you pick it up and you go, I didn't know about this show. I didn't know about that. And that actually comes from the editorial content and the advertisements. And so those two things I think are really what the base is. And then every now and again, when a paper like an alt-weekly is around and you need it to kind of, take a swipe at somebody, kind of report something that's going uncovered. That's really where the City Paper does that the best. And that's what I love about all weeklies, and having that ability to be like, hey, that's not right. We have to tell it this way. And maybe it's against the status quo. Maybe it'll get us, some public officials mad at us, but that's kind of what, the City Paper does. So I think those two things are why an alt-weekly is important.
The same company who owns the Post-Gazette bought City Paper, Block Communications. They bought it from the Butler Eagle. And you worked at City Paper for years, but now you're at the Trib. What did you think when the news broke?
I was really surprised. I mean, I didn't suspect any of this. It was really just kind of came out of nowhere. And even though I'd worked at, City Paper for years and covered, all the stuff happening at the Post-Gazette, it was just something that really surprised me in terms of who the buyer was. Not that the City Paper was sold, but that like who the buyer was was the really, shocking thing.
So as soon as the announcement came, there were lots of speculations about why, the Block family might be purchasing Pittsburgh City Paper. Why do you think people were so quick to think it wasn't done in good faith?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Blocks have had a pretty bad reputation for, several years now, especially among people who really follow the Pittsburgh media scene closely, obviously with all the labor disputes and all the, controversies over Alexis Johnson and a bunch of other things that have been happening at the Post-Gazette over the last few years. Right.
We should just say that the Post-Gazette, which Block Communications owns, has been on strike since October. The situation with Alexis Johnson was that. Can you describe that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So the Post-Gazette came under controversy during the Black Lives Matter protest for disciplining Alexis Johnson, a staffer there, who had tweeted out a humorous tweet comparing the damage from the protest to the damage that is done every year at the Kenny Chesney concert that comes to town. Kind of poking fun at how that's like a regular destruction of the city that no one really seems to be mad about. But when these protests happen, everybody seemed to be really upset. Right. So she tweeted that out. It went viral. It was hilarious. I retweeted it, I remember. and then she was disciplined by the Post-Gazette management, said she can't cover Black Lives Matter protests, can't cover these things. It led to a huge story. I think the City Paper me at the City Paper was the first to break that story. And it just became this like national story about ownership and of, publications. And are they trying to censor their writers? Are they trying to block them from telling these kind of truths? That combined with the fact that the, Post-Gazette before that had placed some pretty conservative writers in their editorial department that are writing opinion stories about certain things. And so that's not really what the Post-Gazette was known for years. It was really more the liberal paper. And that kind of combined really kind of broke some trust, I guess, with some people. And so it just kind of with everything that happened with all that, you see the blocks then buy City Paper, which is the, progressive, liberal, alt weekly. People are obviously anxious over what will happen. Now, I'll say that having worked there, I'm not so sure that it's just going to be a 1-2, like, oh, they're going to censor everything. Like, it wouldn't really make sense for them to do that. Like, that would just kind of even tank the brand more. And there were the same kind of anxieties that happened when the City Paper was purchased by the Butler Eagle. And there was controversy over my former editor actually losing his job. And having worked there after that, we didn't see any censorship or any kind of thing like that. In fact, I wrote several stories critical of certain conservative politicians and everything like that. So I understand the anxiety, but I'm not sure if it's actually going to play out. We'll have to wait and see.
Since the news broke, I have seen a lot of people, pointing out that City Paper is one of the only outlets that was consistently covering the strike and the labor relations at the Post-Gazette from, a critical eye. Does it seem like this purchase might have, anything to do with that? Like, is it an attempt to kind of tamp things down?
Yeah, it's possible. I would imagine that the new owners probably don't want this other paper writing about them really critically all the time. Now they've vowed in their statement to be, independent of that. I guess we'll just have to wait and see if there's another big story that comes out about the PG and then the City Paper isn't covering it or isn't covering it critically. But I totally understand the anxieties that exist.
We are in a very interesting time in Pittsburgh right now. There are local officials and candidates for local office who refuse to talk to the Post-Gazette while workers are on strike. That's a lot of news that we're not getting, So, what does that mean for Pittsburgh and the role of reporters at other outlets like City Paper or even you at the Trib?
Yeah, well, all the local officials aren't boycotting me, so I still get
right.
my interviews and everything like that. And sometimes
you're still in good standing, Ryan.
Yeah, sometimes there's some benefit to that, but I think generally it's bad. I don't want to see any papers and and reporters not be spoken to. We want all that stuff to be spread to as many readers as possible. That's our goal. Is we want everyone to be as well informed as they can. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it just depends on how long this strike is gonna play out for. It seems like it's here for the long game, and it's gonna be probably a long, drawn out process at this point because it doesn't seem like there's any kind of deal making happening.
It's the start of a new year, and one goal you might be considering is buying your first home. 2022 was a very difficult year to buy a home, but 2023, I'm telling you, it's the year of the first-time home buyer. If you haven't listened to the How to Buy a Home podcast, now is the perfect time. Host David Sidoni is an industry expert who has helped thousands all over North America buy their first home, and I know he can help you too. David can guide you through next steps that are right for you, whether you're planning to buy a home now or 5 years from now. He can even connect you with a great realtor in your town that works with first-time home buyers and actually cares about you. Plus, he just released a first-time home buyer starter kit at howtobuiahome.com. It's a free resource thousands of people have already taken advantage of with all the knowledge you need to buy your first home. Start planning today at howtobuiahome.com and make this the last year that you rent. Find How to Buy a Home on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. There have been a lot of writers who have left. You've left City Paper. We talked to Tara Nayadea about her departure last month from the paper. Also, the editor-in-chief, Lisa Cunningham, resigned after she says Butler Eagle management reprimanded her. Her and her team were trying to report that the Butler Eagle was printing the Post-Gazette during a strike. Now, you said you didn't see this coming, but, I don't know. Was this something that maybe you've heard from other people at the paper? Did they see this coming at all?
No. I'm still in contact with the people there, and no, this was kind of a surprise to them as well. And I know the timing of it. They were actually meeting with the new owners and the old owners, and then just 10 minutes later, they kind of the PG released a story about the purchase. So it was a shock to them as well. I think that it had been kind of well known. If you look at the history of the City Paper, it's been bought and sold like now a few times over the last
Yeah.
like 5-6 years. I
Yeah.
think I actually worked under like at least two different ownerships, and now this third ownership.
Mhm.
So that probably wasn't a surprise that the Eagle was looking to sell the paper. I think when I was working there, it was always like, when are we going to be sold? Like, is someone else going to buy us? It was that specter was always there. But in terms of who bought it, I think that was
Yeah.
more of a surprise, especially considering, Block's communication, not only their own labor issues, but it's just they have profitability issues with the Post-Gazette as well. So it's like, well, do you really want to buy another print online media product? I don't know. It doesn't, from a business sense, it doesn't make a ton of sense.
Speaking of papers that have been bought and sold recently or repeatedly and financial stresses of that, we've seen a lot of alt weeklies fold over the last decade or so, including the Philadelphia City Paper. But Pittsburgh City Paper's held on. Why do you think that is? Like, and are you concerned that's going to change now?
I kind of used to be concerned about that, but I'm less concerned about it now. There seems to be a pretty stable base of desire for the kind of arts and music and entertainment coverage
Right.
that the City Paper is really known for, and combine that with those kind of areas, like to advertise. They have to advertise somewhere, and they want to advertise somewhere where there's
Mm.
consistent stories about them. Um, Pittsburgh's really parochial. They really love their kind of local things, and
Yeah.
having that City Paper, just even check your horoscope, check a weird listing, check what shows coming, regardless of the some of the news content, which obviously I'm really proud of, and I think that the City Paper still does really good stuff,
Yeah.
but that seems to be the stability that exists. And then every now and again, City Paper can really get a hard hitting story that kind of opens people's eyes and like, oh wow, we're so glad this is here. So I think that seems pretty stable to me.
We actually reached out to Brandon Soderberg. It's the former editor of Baltimore City Paper. It's actually an alt weekly that got bought up by the group that publishes that city's main paper, the Baltimore Sun. And pretty shortly thereafter, the alt weekly shut down. He was a little more pessimistic than you sound, where he thinks things stand with alt weeklies right now. And here's what he had to say.
The state of the alt weekly, like the state of kind of a lot of good advocacy based journalism, is in a very scary place right now. As I sort of have said plenty of times when I've talked about the death of the alt weekly, the game's kind of rigged against them, and I don't mean to be too cynical, but like the game is especially rigged against them when some big shot buyer comes in that has no understanding of what it is, and at best wants to leverage the brand for advertising. At worst, wants to turn it into some sort of you know libertarian proto-capitalist nightmarish place for their opinions. So where the alt weekly stands right now is that it's really in the hands of the journalists who want to save it, which is unfair to journalists who just on top of doing journalism have to save the journalism they do, and it's on the communities that support them, which is getting harder and harder just because I think it's a larger journalistic revenue generating issue.
Yeah, there's really no sugarcoating what's happening to the alt weekly industry as a whole. That it
Mm.
definitely, there are so many signs that it's been really dying and flailing in a lot of ways. We've lost like 1/3 or 2/3 of the alt weeklies that used to exist. But I worked at City Paper for 6 years, and I guess I always thought we were going to go under, and then they never did. And then I left, and they're still there, and they just got bought. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and so why didn't they just fold it up? Like, I don't know. Like, this is what is confusing. I think in the bigger countrywide trend, absolutely. And Brandon's a really smart guy, and a lot of his points are absolutely correct. I don't know if they apply to Pittsburgh or not. I don't know. Pittsburgh is an interesting media market. We have a lot of local media, and I think there's a desire to keep it that way. So it's very strange, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I just would have thought the City Paper would have gone under, like, even before I got there, and I got there in like 2015.
Clearly still filling the need of something.
Yeah, yeah, it is, and I think in some of these other bigger markets too, all weekly struggle more.
Yeah.
A lot of the people who live there, there's more transplants. There's more people who are maybe have grown interested in more national news, and so when you're in those areas, you just, I don't know, people kind of lose interest, but there seems to be a lot of focus in a place like Pittsburgh to kind of follow those local things. So I don't know. Now, I could be totally wrong, and we could hear in a month that the, PG owners are liquidating the city paper for something and it's gone. It's a very precarious, but I guess I just don't know if that will actually happen. It wouldn't make much sense to buy something and then just run it into the ground. And I also think that the way that the owners have run, the Post-Gazette is kind of indicative of how they'll act towards the city paper. Now, a lot of other papers that get bought out by national conglomerates, like the Gannett papers, like what happened with the Cleveland Plain Dealer, those kind of have a more very investment-based capitalistic kind of structure that will kind of robber baron the paper for whatever value it has and then just let it go. But that's not really how the blocks have run, the Post-Gazette. They could have shut down the Post-Gazette years ago. Yeah. It doesn't make money. Their other companies do. And that's part of the labor dispute is that, hey, your other companies make money. You should pay this because this is an important service. But I think the blocks, for all their controversies and issues, also believe that the paper is worth keeping around, else they would have not had it around. I know that we don't know what's really going to happen with these owners, and the anxiety is there, and I totally understand that. I'm weirdly confident even though I left the city paper, I'm weirdly confident in its ability to, persevere.
Ryan Dito is a reporter for the Trib. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
A little more news before you go. Buckle up because Pennsylvania Turnpike tolls just increased for the 15th year in a row. That's a lot of increases. The 5% increase began on Sunday, and it seems like we can expect more in the years to come. The increase wasn't because there was less travel during the pandemic, but because of a previous bill requiring tolls to fund transit programs. And after years of fundraising, the city will begin to restore Southside's Oliver Bathhouse this year. The bathhouse was built in 1915 and was intended to be a social space on top of a place to bathe. The restoration is supposed to preserve its historic integrity and make it more environmentally sustainable. That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. If you enjoyed the show, tell a friend, rate the show. Support striking workers, and leave us a review and subscribe to our Hey Pittsburgh newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city, so we'll see you then.
You don't want to say rub-a-dub-dub in the tub?
Do not. Okay.